Good morning slash afternoon slash evening, everyone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever shared a win, a success, or even just a happy moment, and someone replied with, "Must be nice. Jealousy is a mirror not of you, but of them." It doesn't reflect your flaws, your mistakes, or your supposed arrogance. It reflects their insecurities, their self-doubt, and their fear of not being enough. When someone looks at you with jealousy, they aren't really seeing you. They're seeing the version of themselves they wish they could become, but haven't dared to pursue. Your presence becomes a painful reminder of their unfulfilled potential. And instead of confronting that truth, they project it outward. Jealousy doesn't announce itself with clarity. It creeps in quietly, camouflaged as concern or even friendliness. It looks like a backhanded compliment. It sounds like, "You're lucky," or "It must be nice." It acts like passive criticism, delivered with a smile and a shrug. It might even arrive as silence when they should be clapping for you the loudest. The jealous rarely say, "I envy your courage," or "I wish I had your strength." Instead, they try to minimize what you've done, because if they can make it smaller, maybe they won't feel so small in comparison. That's what the mirror does. It distorts. It shows them what they lack, not what you have. So when you succeed, they don't see your hard work. They see their laziness. When you take risks, they don't see your bravery. They feel their own fear. When you shine, they don't admire the light. They're blinded by it. And sometimes they hate you for it, not because you did anything wrong, but because you did something right. And that disrupts the lie they've been telling themselves, that people like them can't do things like that. You've probably been told before you've changed, by someone who never changed at all, that statement. It's never really about you. It's about their discomfort with growth. Your evolution doesn't fit in the frame of the mirror they've been holding. You're outgrowing the box they've tried to keep you in. And instead of adjusting their perspective, they want to break the glass. What's even more ironic is that the same people who envy you could choose to be inspired by you. They could learn from your discipline, your sacrifices, your resilience. But inspiration requires humility. Jealousy, on the other hand, thrives in pride. It convinces people that if they can't have what you have, then you must not deserve it either. That's why they gossip. That's why they roll their eyes when your name comes up. That's why they act different when you walk into the room. They aren't mad at you. They're mad that they're not you. And still it hurts, doesn't it? Because these people might be close. Friends, family, colleagues. People you rooted for, cheered on, encouraged when they needed it most. And when it was your turn to rise, they distanced themselves, found reasons not to support you, maybe even tried to pull you back. That sting is real, but it's also revealing. It shows you who was clapping out of love, and who was clapping because they didn't think you'd ever get further than them. But don't mistake their reflection for your reality. You're not arrogant for being proud of what you've earned. You're not selfish for protecting your peace. And you're definitely not responsible for someone else's lack of ambition. The mirror belongs to them, not you. Let them keep it. Let them wrestle with their own image. Your job is not to manage their discomfort. Your job is to keep going, keep shining, and keep showing what's possible when you choose growth over comfort. You don't need to explain yourself to the jealous. They've already decided what to believe about you, not because of what you are, but because of what they're not. And no amount of shrinking will make them feel taller. So if they need to twist your wins into something ugly just to feel better, let them. You don't need their permission to live boldly, because in the end, jealousy doesn't say anything about you. It just reveals the mirror that someone else hasn't been brave enough to look into. They disguise envy with fake concern or unsolicited advice. It doesn't always show up as obvious negativity or open resentment. In fact, some of the most jealous people can sound incredibly supportive at first glance. They'll cloak their envy in the kind of words that make you second, guess yourself, doubt your path, and pause your progress, not out of wisdom, but out of subtle sabotage. They know how to make it look like they care, but their words are laced with an unspoken message. Don't go too far, don't rise too high, don't outgrow me. You share your dreams with them, and instead of encouragement, they offer caution masked as kindness. Are you sure that's a good idea? They ask, as if they know something you don't. I just don't want to see you get hurt, they say, but their voice doesn't carry warmth. That carries quiet fear, not of your failure, but of your success. Because if you succeed, they're left behind in the version of life they chose not to change. They won't say it outright, but their advice always seems to pull you backward instead of push you forward. Sometimes it's subtle, a raised eyebrow, a skeptical tone, a hesitant pause before they speak. Other times it's packaged in backhanded compliments. Wow, you're really doing that now. Or I mean, that's ambitious, good for you, I guess. They might warn you about being too confident, or tell you to be careful, not because they've been there and understand the risks, but because they can't handle the idea of you succeeding where they never even tried. The most confusing part is that it sounds like care. It looks like advice, it feels like support, at first, but something in your gut doesn't sit right. That's the part of you that recognizes the truth. Their words aren't about protecting you. They're about protecting themselves from the discomfort of watching someone else do what they're too afraid to attempt. Unsolicited advice often reveals more about the giver than the receiver. People project their limitations onto others all the time. They speak from their own fear, not from your potential. When they say, "You should probably play it safe," what they really mean is, "I wouldn't be brave enough to try that." When they say, "You might want a backup plan," what they're really saying is, "I'd never bet on myself like that." But because they don't want to confront their own fears, they present their opinions as guidance. They make it sound like wisdom when it's really just worry. Worry that they'll be left behind. Some of them genuinely believe they're helping you. They don't see their envy. They don't feel it as jealousy. They feel it as discomfort, unease, a tightness in their chest they don't know how to explain when you start doing well. They tell themselves that you're reckless, impulsive, unrealistic, because that's easier to accept than admitting that maybe, just maybe, they settled for less than they wanted. It's easier to doubt you than to face what they didn't do. Others know exactly what they're doing. They don't want to uplift you. They want to keep you grounded, by force if necessary. They don't want to match your energy, so they try to mute it. And they do it through carefully placed words, small enough to stay unnoticed but heavy enough to weigh on you. It's psychological, it's strategic. They offer help that makes you hesitate. They give advice that creates anxiety, and before you know it, you're holding yourself back, not because of your own doubts, but because someone else disguised envy as expertise. You start wondering if you're moving too fast, dreaming too big, reaching too high, and that's exactly the trap. Because when you shrink, they feel taller. When you pause, they feel in control. When you fail, they feel justified. And all of it is disguised as caring words, as helpful insights, as protective concern. But none of it is rooted in love. Real support doesn't feel confusing. Real encouragement doesn't leave you second, guessing yourself. The people who truly want to see you win don't try to advise you into playing small. They celebrate your courage even when it challenges them. They cheer for you even when your success highlights their own discomfort. That's how you know the difference. So the next time someone offers advice you didn't ask for, listen closely, not just to the words, but to the tone, the energy, the motive behind them. Because envy rarely enters the room shouting. It often walks in gently, smiling, offering to help, while secretly hoping you never realize your full power. Common phrases like "must be nice" might seem harmless on the surface, but they're often loaded with silent resentment. It's one of those expressions people throw out with a smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes, a phrase that pretends to be light but carries a sharp edge just beneath it. When someone says, "must be nice," they're not usually commenting on your success or good fortune. They're revealing how they truly feel about it. Jealousy rarely announces itself directly. It shows up in the subtle digs, in the carefully chosen words that sound casual but are meant to make you feel guilty, undeserving, or even ashamed for having something they don't. The phrase "must be nice" often comes when you've shared something you're proud of, a career milestone, a new car, a vacation, a personal win, and instead of saying "congratulations" or "I'm happy for you," they say it "must be nice." It's not curiosity. It's not admiration. It's a dismissal, a way to reduce your hard work or your struggle to a matter of luck, privilege, or timing. It implies you were handed something instead of earning it. It suggests that your success is unfair or that you don't deserve it as much as they think they would. That phrase often carries an unspoken accusation. You had it easier, you got lucky, things just worked out for you. But what it ignores completely is the effort behind the scenes, the hours of work, the sacrifices, the self-doubt you pushed through, the moments you almost gave up but didn't. Must be nice erases the story behind the outcome. It flattens your experience into a snapshot they can scoff at, because it's easier to envy the results than respect the journey. Sometimes, people say it because they genuinely can't understand what it took for you to get there. Maybe they weren't around when you were struggling. Maybe you didn't make a big deal out of your setbacks or the nights you cried in silence. So to them, it looks like you just showed up one day successful. Other times, they say it because they were there. They saw you begin at the same starting line, and watching you pull ahead feels like a personal insult. They can't celebrate you because it forces them to confront why they stayed in the same place. Must be nice isn't always about you at all. It's about the person saying it and what they haven't allowed themselves to pursue. It's their way of avoiding responsibility for their own choices. If they can convince themselves that you didn't earn what you have, then they don't have to feel bad for not trying. They don't have to change, grow, or stretch beyond their comfort zone. Your success becomes their excuse not to try, because it was never really possible, because you had an unfair advantage, because they're the victim in your victory. You can usually tell when the phrase is meant to sting. It comes with a tone, a certain dryness or bitterness behind the words. Sometimes it's followed by silence or a change in energy. You can feel the shift, even if they're smiling, and it gets more complicated when it comes from someone close to you. When a friend, sibling, or coworker says, "must be nice," it feels different. It feels personal because you want their support, you expect it, and instead, you get a backhanded comment that leaves you feeling guilty for doing well. But here's the truth, you don't have to apologize for your progress. You don't need to feel guilty for achieving something someone else hasn't. Your success doesn't diminish anyone else's worth. It doesn't steal opportunity from them. In fact, it could inspire them, if they let it, but envy doesn't want inspiration. It wants justification, and that phrase, it's the verbal shrug of someone who wants to stay where they are, while blaming you for moving ahead. You can't control how others respond to your wins. Some will cheer, some will shrink. Some will whisper those words with a bitter edge, hoping to make you second. Guess yourself, but don't. You know what it took to get here. You know the cost, the climb, the quiet perseverance. You don't owe anyone an explanation, and you certainly don't owe them your dimmed light. Let them say, "must be nice," and let them watch you keep rising without ever needing their permission. Your growth threatens their comfort zone in ways that even they may not fully understand. When you begin to evolve, when you start making different choices, thinking differently, breaking cycles, reaching higher, it doesn't just affect you. It affects the dynamic you have with others. It changes the silent agreements that have kept relationships comfortable, predictable, and safe for them. Suddenly, the version of you they knew, the version that fit neatly into their world, is no longer standing still. You've disrupted the balance, and people don't like having their comfort zones shaken. They may not say it out loud. In fact, they may not consciously realize it, but on some level they feel it. You used to be just like them. You shared the same frustrations, the same limitations, the same stories about what life could or couldn't be. There was a kind of unspoken comfort in that sameness. It meant no one had to feel challenged. No one had to feel behind. No one had to feel like they weren't doing enough. But then you started to grow, and that growth became a mirror. It reflected back to them all the things they weren't doing, all the risks they weren't taking, all the excuses they were hiding behind. And that mirror is uncomfortable. People often say they want to see you do well, until doing well means becoming someone they no longer recognize. You start speaking with more confidence, setting boundaries, talking about dreams they never dared to voice. You might start saying no more often, protecting your energy, choosing your peace over their approval, and that shift, that inner strength, makes them uneasy, because the old version of you was easier to manage. The old version didn't challenge them to look inward. Sometimes the resistance comes quietly. They stop texting as much. They pull away. They roll their eyes when you share something exciting. Other times, it's more overt. They criticize your decisions, mock your new habits, question your motives. You've changed, they say, not realizing that was the whole point. You were never meant to stay the same. Growth is uncomfortable. And your discomfort with being stagnant forced you to move, but their discomfort with your movement makes them want to pull you back. Not everyone is ready to grow when you are, and that's one of the hardest truths to accept. Because you want to take them with you. You want to uplift them, show them what's possible, share the path. But some people will reject your growth simply because it forces them to confront their fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. And instead of facing that fear, they project it onto you. They make your growth the problem, not their unwillingness to evolve. You'll hear things like, "Don't forget where you came from," as if growing means betraying your roots. You'll hear, "You're acting different lately," as if different is bad. You'll hear, "You think you're better than us now," when all you're really trying to do is be better than you were yesterday. Their words aren't really about you. They're about the story they've told themselves about what's possible. And your growth is a plot twist they weren't prepared for. It's important to remember that you're not responsible for other people's comfort. You're not obligated to stay small so that others don't feel insecure. Your evolution isn't arrogance, it's courage. It's choosing truth over tradition. It's choosing authenticity over approval. And sometimes that means outgrowing relationships, spaces, and roles that once felt like home. It's painful, yes, but it's also necessary. You can love people and still leave behind the version of you they were comfortable with. You can care deeply and still choose yourself. The ones who truly support your growth will grow with you. Or at the very least, they'll cheer from the sidelines even if they don't fully understand your path. But the ones who resist, who criticize, who guilt, trip you for evolving. They're not really mad at you. They're mad at what your growth reveals about their own limitations. So grow anyway, dream anyway, become everything they said you couldn't, everything you once believed you couldn't, because your growth might threaten their comfort zone, but it's the key to your freedom. And freedom, once tasted, is worth every uncomfortable truth it uncovers. Don't dim your light just to soothe their insecurity. Your brilliance, your boldness, your strength, those are not flaws to hide, they're gifts to honor. Yet so often, we're conditioned to make ourselves smaller for the sake of others' comfort. We lower our volume, soften our presence, and hold back our excitement just so no one feels left out or less than. But what if the very things you're hiding are the things the world needs most? What if your light is meant to shine exactly as it is, full strength, unapologetic, and true? When you grow, achieve, or stand confidently in your truth, it can trigger others. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence challenges their silence. Your wins can feel like their losses. Your confidence might highlight their self-doubt. And instead of dealing with those feelings honestly, some people try to make you feel guilty for shining too brightly. They say things like, "You're doing too much," or "You've changed," or "Don't forget where you came from." And at first you might believe them, you might second, guess yourself, question your tone, wonder if maybe you should tone it down. But here's the truth, you are not responsible for managing someone else's insecurity. You didn't cause it, and it's not your job to fix it. Your light doesn't harm them, their own unhealed places do, and dimming yourself won't heal them. It won't make them feel more worthy or more seen. It will only shrink you. It will only teach you to hide when you should be soaring. And slowly, almost without noticing, you start erasing the very things that make you who you are. It starts with little things. You stop talking about your success because you don't want to sound like you're bragging. You stop dressing the way you like because someone said it was too much. You stop sharing your dreams because every time you do, someone rolls their eyes or makes a joke to bring you back down. And eventually, you find yourself walking through life cautiously, editing your joy, shrinking your presence, dimming your own light in the name of keeping peace. But real peace doesn't ask you to disappear. Real friends, real partners, real communities don't feel threatened by your glow. They don't resent your joy. They celebrate it. They don't try to match you by tearing you down. They rise with you. And the people who can't handle your light, they're not meant to stand in your sun. If someone feels uncomfortable because you've stepped into your power, that discomfort is their invitation to grow, not your signal to shrink. There's something sacred about standing fully in your light. It's not just about success or visibility. It's about owning your worth. It's about knowing who you are and refusing to apologize for it. It's about walking into a room and not needing to be the loudest, but knowing you don't need to hide either. That kind of presence changes everything. It inspires people. It breaks generational patterns. It opens doors not just for you, but for others who have been waiting for permission to do the same. Yes, your light will expose what's been hiding in the shadows. It will reveal what others are afraid to face. But that's not a reason to stop. It's a reason to keep going. You don't need to dull your shine for people who haven't yet found theirs. Let them see you. Let them feel what it's like to be around someone who knows their worth. Maybe it will inspire them to find their own, or maybe it won't. But either way, your job isn't to make everyone comfortable. Your job is to live fully, to love deeply, to rise boldly, and to never apologize for how brightly you were meant to shine. So speak up, show up, take up space where what makes you feel alive. Share your ideas, your vision, your passion. Be proud of your journey. Celebrate your wins. You don't have to wait for someone else to approve it. You are the approval, and anyone who tries to dim your light with criticism, envy, or judgment is only showing you that they're still lost in their own shadows. Your light is not too much, it's just enough. It's needed, it's powerful, it's yours, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for how beautifully you shine. Turn their bitterness into your fuel. Let their doubts, their criticisms, their sideways comments become the very thing that pushes you forward, not holds you back. People who are bitter often speak from a place of personal disappointment, unhealed wounds, and dreams they never had the courage to chase. They see you trying, growing, pushing boundaries, and instead of letting it inspire them, they choose to react with sarcasm, jealousy, and negativity. That bitterness isn't about you, it's about them, but that doesn't mean it won't sting. It can hit hard, especially when it comes from people you once admired, trusted, or loved. Yet even in that pain, there is power. You get to decide what to do with it. Bitterness is loud when it sees joy. It reacts when it witnesses ambition. It twists itself into criticism, mockery, or doubt, trying to plant seeds of insecurity in your path. It wants you to guess yourself. It wants you to slow down, to shrink, to stay small, so it doesn't have to confront its own stagnation. But what if instead of letting it break you, you let it build you? What if every bitter comment became proof that you're stepping into something bigger than they can understand? People won't always celebrate your rise. Sometimes your growth disrupts their comfort. Sometimes your glow reminds them of all the light they've refused to step into. And when they feel that discomfort, they lash out, not always directly, but with those little jabs. Don't get ahead of yourself. Let's see how long that lasts. You're not all that. These phrases aren't feedback. They're projections, and when you internalize them, you rob yourself of your own momentum. But you don't have to internalize it. You can use it. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it refine your resolve. Every time someone tells you what you can't do, hear it as a challenge. Watch me. Not out of spite, but out of power. Not because you need to prove them wrong, but because you owe it to yourself to prove yourself right. Let their bitterness remind you of what you've already overcome and what you're still capable of. They'll roll their eyes at your dreams. They'll question your choices. They'll whisper behind your back and smile to your face. And still you rise, still you show up, still you give your all, because you know something they don't. Your journey is not about them. Their bitterness is just background noise. You're building something real. You're working on something deep, and sometimes that makes people uncomfortable. Let it. Let their discomfort be the sign that you're doing something worth noticing. Let their bitterness echo in the distance while you keep taking steps forward. You don't need everyone to understand your path. You just need the courage to keep walking it. Use every cold stare, every dismissive comment, every undermining word as fuel, not to burn bridges, but to light fires under your purpose. You are not here to make everyone feel okay. You're here to grow, to stretch, to reach, to become. And the moment you stop letting bitterness drain you and start letting it drive you, everything changes. You stop seeking validation and start moving with vision. You stop reacting and start responding, with action, with energy, with presence. Bitterness tries to slow you down, but it only has power if you hand it the keys. So don't, instead, thank it silently for showing you who's not ready to walk beside you. Thank it for revealing what mindsets you've outgrown. Thank it for reminding you that not everyone gets to have a say in your story. And then get back to work, build anyway, dream anyway, celebrate anyway, not in defiance, but in truth. Your joy doesn't need to be dimmed because someone else has forgotten how to find theirs. Your ambition doesn't need to be explained to people who stopped believing in theirs. Your journey is sacred, and no amount of bitterness from others can interrupt what's meant for you, unless you let it. So let them talk, let them doubt, let them stew in their silence. You're not here to carry their baggage. You're here to climb, and every ounce of their bitterness, it's just more fuel. Let it burn, let it push you, let it remind you exactly why you started.